Hey, welcome to YSR Shorts. Every once in a while, I get a question from a client that says, um, "Do I need an irrevocable trust?" Or more specifically, should I put my house into an irrevocable trust? And that brings up a whole lot of issues. So let's try to unpack some of that. So if you listen to the last episode, it's only about 5 or 6 minutes long. Make sure you catch that. A trust is a non-person entity to be able to hold property during your lifetime and after your death. Most trusts that people create are what's called revocable trusts, which means you can change them, revoke them, get rid of them, do anything you want during your lifetime. There's also something called an irrevocable trust, or attorneys will say irrevocable. They'll say revocable and irrevocable. Did you hear that on the second one? That's how they know it's irrevocable. And that's why I say irrevocable, not irrevocable, even though technically they are pronouncing it correctly. Irrevocable trust, as the name kind of implies, means it's not revocable. It's not changeable. Once you create it, it's static. Why would you put money into an irrevocable trust during your lifetime? The main reason people will look for an irrevocable trust is to place their house into it because they're concerned that at some point in their lifetimes, they may enter a nursing home and the government may take their house to pay for it. And that is somewhat a valid concern. It's a whole bag of worms and not enough time to cover it today of the likelihood of that, plus or minus, but it can be a good solution for some people to do so. But there are many caveats. Uh, again, you can't have the money back. You can't have the house back. That may or may not be an issue. But issue number one is, are you going to live in this home for the rest of your life? Because if not, there's going to be some complexity here. And I have had clients in their 60s, especially married couples in their 60s, insist that they need one of these. I had a client that did this and got into all sorts of headaches later on in retirement because it was not their last best house that they were planning on living in. Um, Selling a home inside of a trust is not complicated. You're typically not the trustee of this trust, by the way. It's usually one of your children. So you all actually lose control of managing the house, even though you're responsible kind of for paying all the bills and everything during your lifetime. The decision to sell or not sell is not technically up to you. You need to be aware of that. We trust our kids. I trust my kids implicitly. Most people, I think, do. But be aware of that you're not in full control. They can sell the house within the trust. They will owe taxes on the sale of that house because you do not get one of those, oh wait, I lived in this house 2 out of the last 5 years, I can take that deduction. You can, but you don't own the house anymore. This non-person entity called your irrevocable trust does, and they do not qualify for the 2 out of 5 clause because they're not a person. They can't live in the house. They don't exist. So be aware of that. Typically, if somebody comes to me in their 60s and says, I think we should do this, I'm going to tell them we might want to hold off. We'll consult with an attorney. You should always consult with an attorney on these things, but we're going to encourage them to hold off. In their 70s, a married couple at 70 or 71, I'd almost still, me personally, I'd hold off. I would not be rushing into that situation. Maybe at 75, if you're single and you're 70, you might start considering it. But a married couple, 75 is probably the earliest, unless there's medical issues within the family. You want to be very careful of that. The last thing you want to understand when it comes to placing your house into an irrevocable trust is when we talked about if you sell that house and move to a different house, there's going to be tax ramifications. Those tax ramifications don't go away when you pass away. So if you own your house or you own your house in a regular revocable living trust, when you pass away, let's say you paid $50,000 for your house 40 years ago, and it's worth $500,000 today, and you pass away quietly in your sleep, and your children inherit that house, whether it's through a revocable living trust or they go to probate, their basis in that house is $500,000, not $50,000, because they got a step up in that basis. Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. So they owe no taxes, no income taxes on the sale of your house. Same situation, but you've placed the house into an irrevocable trust. You pass away, and your heirs owe taxes on $450,000 worth of taxable gain because the trust did not die. So it does not receive a step up in basis. You do not have an ownership interest in that piece of property. You want to be very aware of that. There are some ways to work around this. They also put your house possibly at risk for the state saying, yeah, we're still taking your house because you went into a nursing home. You want to be very aware of that. But understand, an irrevocable trust, something that is permanent, that you're deciding during your lifetime, usually when you're very healthy, can be very, very dangerous. You want to be very careful before you implement something like that. If you have questions, jump down in the show notes. We'll see if we can help you out. Stay safe out there.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Remember, the views expressed are not necessarily those of Successful Money Strategies. All content is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as an endorsement of any third party or their views, or as a solicitation or offer to sell securities or provide investment, tax, legal, or consulting services. We believe the information presented to be reliable, but it is not guaranteed for accuracy or completeness. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Hypothetical returns do not reflect actual trading and may not be indicative of the performance of any specific investment. Always consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Additional information, including management fees and expenses, is provided on our Form ADV Part 2, available upon request, or at the SEC's Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website, https://advisorinfo.sec.gov.